Hey, good morning. Thanks a lot. We're here with Rosemary Botten this morning, doing a Zoom call. Good morning, Rosemary.
Hi, Jim.
It's good to see you again, even though we're doing this via a Zoom. Rosemary is Jeffrey Botten's mom. Now, Rosemary, Jeffrey was diagnosed with a cancer at a very young age. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. He was diagnosed with leukemia, um, essentially 1 month before his third birthday.
Okay, and we're going to go cut right to the chase here. Jeffrey is now 28 years old. He's working over at dealer.com, Burlington, and doing quite well. He's been out to California, and he's cancer-free at this point, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. He was, they got him into remission actually within the first 30 days. And then it was still a 2.5-year treatment plan. But he has been cancer free. He's doing really well. He's an amazing young man.
He is. And let's go back to before your involvement with camp and that just horrible day when he was diagnosed. How did that all affect you?
Jim, that's a that's a loaded question. Your world is just turned completely upside down. It's nothing you expect. For us, the day was really strange. My husband was a correction officer. He worked for the Department of Corrections and had never gone on a trip. And lo and behold, his first trip he ever took with corrections happened to also be the day that Jeffrey was diagnosed. It was a long day. I was running him from, a doctor's appointment in Champlain to a doctor's appointment in Plattsburgh to over to the hospital for blood work and some x-rays, and then to a pediatrician's office in Plattsburgh. And, their word was, you're going to Burlington. As a matter of fact, Jeffrey's platelet counts were so low, they were holding the ferry for us and said, you need to get there and get there now. And I was just, it was surreal. You didn't know what was happening. You didn't know what to think. It was just beyond anything you could really comprehend. But we ended up in Burlington. A phenomenal coworker of my husband's made arrangements down in the city for his work, and he literally drove him from New York City to Burlington to be with us. It's just, I look back now and you just wonder sometimes, how you did it. And I used to have people ask me along the way, oh my God, how do you handle it? And you just do. What alternative do you have? It's your child and you're going to do everything and anything you can. But, for all these families, it's a shock. It changes your life forever.
And you found support from those folks at camp through the hospital over in Vermont. And when did that happen?
The support started immediately. Back then, there were some parents who reached out to us whose children had been recently diagnosed and just wanted to say that they were there. They tried to give us, their best advice on what to do, how to stay organized, not to be afraid to ask questions. And then at that time, you also were all treated on the same day. I mean, so this was long ago when Jeffrey was diagnosed, obviously, but we all went to treatment on the same day. So you saw the same group of people. You were hospitalized with, generally at the same time with the same group of people. So you kind of formed your own network of support of people who were going through what you were, and they understood the difficulties, and they understood the balance of life and the balance with other children, the balance with work, all those things that had to be adjusted. We first got him to go at the age of 9, so he missed his 2 years at 7 and 8 years old. And when he was 9 and we were over at the hospital for our annual visit, Shira Bilodeau, who's one of the founders of camp, Shira came in, and it was June. Camp was the end of July. Registration was passed. And Shira said, "Hey, Jeffrey, are you coming to camp?" And Jeffrey said no. And Shira looked at us and said, what do you mean no? And then she went and got him a whole pile of the yearbooks for camp. And he sat there while he was waiting for his appointment and flipped through the pages. And all of the friends he had made, through this journey, he was seeing pictures of them in there, and all the stories people had told him about the ropes course and the water carnival and the formal and all the wonders of camp. He was, seeing all that come to life through the yearbooks. And so Shira came back and said, what do you think, Jeffrey? Are we going to get you to come to camp? And Jeffrey said, I'll go for one day. And Shira turned to his father and I and said, I got him. Because she knew if she could get him there, that Jeffrey would be there. And sure enough, at 9 years old, he went, and he tells people now his biggest regret was that he missed 2 years.
I remember hearing that from him
Yep.
at one point. Now,
Yep.
I remember you telling me too that you saw a pretty big change in Jeffrey after that first year, or maybe after that first week at camp. Tell me about how that manifested itself. What did you see?
So, they tell you or warn you, whichever way you want to put it, that when you pick your child up from the first week at camp, don't expect them to say a lot. They're going to be exhausted. And I think Jeffrey was asleep really before we hit the end of the road, but what I noticed, and it took me a long time to kind of put my finger on it, what I noticed in Jeffrey was, I call it a quiet confidence. Something had changed in him. And I think it was the ability to connect with other children who had experienced what he had experienced. It was a chance to realize that, okay, while I may feel different around all my friends, I'm not different. I'm not the only one. There are others out there that have been through this. And I think that connection, that family, that magic that happens at camp just gave him his own sense of quiet confidence that he was going to be okay, and that, this was all going to be fine.
And he has been, and he has really, camp has really been in your lives in so many ways from that point forward. Here you are, you've been on the board, you've done photography work for the yearbooks. Before we go, I want you to talk about that one picture that you took that you just summed up that magic of camp in a picture. Do you remember what I'm talking about here when you were
I do.
capturing moments at camp with the camera?
I do. When I joined the photography team, photography's always been a hobby of mine, and there's just something about catching a moment. There's something about a picture telling the story. And any person who takes pictures at camp will tell you there's so many of those, but you always seem to have that one that you go back to. And I know that's what you're referring to because I've told you this story before. And for me, I was headed over towards the ropes course, and the youngest boys were on the ropes course. And there was this one young boy who I think was just, having a hard time that day. He was having a hard time, participating with everybody else. And so one of the counselors had brought him off to the side, and the two of them were just sitting on the grass, and the counselor was actually lying down, and the camper was sitting over the top of him. And when you have kids and you kind of toss them up in the air, you lift them up and you throw them up a little bit. And that's what he was doing with this camper. And the joy on this camper's face, just the light that was shining from him, the happiness that I saw. I actually just laid myself down on the ground far away from them with a telephoto lens and sat there and snapped pictures. And that picture is one where he's up in the air and you can just see all those expressions on his face. It was just a sweet, tender moment that camper needed, and the counselor gave it to him.
Rosemary, thank you for joining us this morning. Your story is a very touching one, moving one, and you tell it so well. And your shared memories are just wonderful to hear. Merry
And
Christmas to you and your family.
thank you. Same to you, Jim. And thank you to KOOL 105 and to all of the donors out there. What you can contribute, no matter how big or how small, it truly makes a difference in the lives of these campers and their entire family. We serve the whole family today, and it makes a difference. You all make a difference, and we need that.